The first time 6-year-old Harper found the thing, it was curled beneath the porch like a bundle of soot and cobwebs. She'd gone down there to retrieve a dropped toy, a little plush frog she'd had since toddlerhood. It had rolled under the old splintered steps of the farmhouse, half swallowed by dry leaves and dust. But when her fingers brushed something warm, something that moved, she screamed and scrambled back. Only, it didn't chase her. It didn't hiss, it didn't even growl. It trembled, like it was scared. Harper returned later that night with a flashlight, a blanket, and half a sandwich. Her parents were busy arguing about bills again, and her brother was off with friends. No one really cared where she wandered. The light barely touched the thing. It soaked into its body like black ink into cloth, revealing just enough, a round, glimmering eye, shimmering like a beetle's carapace, a tiny claw, a flickering outline that pulsed and trembled. "Are you like a bat or something?" she asked. "A shadow?" It chittered softly, a sound that was oddly musical, tentative. She named it Nib. For the first few weeks, Nib stayed under the bed. Harper brought it scraps of food, pieces of string, and once a dead mouse she found in the attic. It hadn't moved fast enough to escape her broom, and she'd read somewhere that bats ate mice. Nib devoured it. Not with its mouth, it didn't really have a mouth to speak of. Nib absorbed the mouse, pulling it into itself like ink-blotting paper in reverse. The bones clicked and clattered inside it like pebbles in a jar. Afterward, it looked bigger, fuller. She started locking her door at night, not for fear of Nib, but for fear of anyone else finding it. By the time Harper was 16, Nib was the size of a small dog and was no longer so easily hidden. It had become darker, somehow shades darker than the shadows under her bed or in the corners of her room. Its shape was no longer consistent either. Sometimes it had legs, sometimes none, sometimes wings, sometimes just tendrils that flickered like candle flames underwater. Harper hadn't just felt responsible for Nib, whatever he, she, it was. She loved Nib with everything she had. And it loved her too. Or something very close to it, she supposed. It would curl up around her at night, humming low, soothing notes that seemed to seep into her bones. It'd nuzzle her hair and bring her gifts, pieces of squirrel fur, a raccoon jawbone, and once a golden locket her mother had lost 3 years ago. Then there was an incident at school. Harper had begged Nib not to follow her anymore, but had always found cracks to slither through. Air vents, lockered doors, even the shadow beneath the janitor's cart. When Bryce Michaels shoved her into the lockers in the hallway and called her a goth freak, she hissed and bled a little from her elbow, cutting herself on a jagged edge. That night, Bryce went to the arcade with some friends and rode his bike toward home when their fun had concluded. He didn't make it home. Investigators found his empty skin hung in his locker like a coat when they came to search his belongings at school. No organs, no blood, just skin, as if something had peeled him off the bone and left the wrapping. Harper had an inkling of an idea, but brushed it off. She just stared at Nib, who pulsed contentedly beneath her dresser, humming a lullaby made of soft groans and wet cracks. The disappearances escalated. A teacher who'd accused Harper of cheating, Harper's tears falling as she defended herself to no avail. Then the mailman, who had known Harper since she was just a kiddo. He was always friendly, but as she came into womanhood, he seemed to become a little too friendly. There was the neighbor's dog who barked incessantly, and then, when the neighbor came looking, her too. The town whispered about cults, Satanists, meth heads. Harper knew better, though, and she loved Nib. She really did. But when her mother vanished after a petty argument, Harper realized something vital. Nib did love her, and only her. Everyone else seemed to be just meat. She drove out at dusk, far into the old salt flats where nothing grew and no one wandered. Nib chirped as she led it with a flashlight beam like a toy, flicking it across the open land, drawing it out like a shadow puppet. Nib followed willingly, dragging its ever-shifting body across the sand, humming to her. At the center of the flats, she set down a bag of raw steaks, kissed Nib's pulsing form one last time, and whispered, "Stay." It blinked its singular eye. One tendril reached out to brush her cheek, then vanished into the ground like smoke, sinking into the cracks between the salt and soil. Harper never saw Nib again, but sometimes, in the corner of her vision, shadows fluttered too long before snapping still. Sometimes she swears she hears humming in her closet, low and wet and ancient. And the men she dates never stick around for long. One went missing after a fight. Another left town overnight shaking and pale, muttering about eyes in the wall. Harper still locks her bedroom door at night. Not to keep anything out, but maybe, just maybe, to keep it in.